All right, hey everybody. We are out on a new job. It's about 1 p.m. Getting ready to get started. Try to get as much done as possible before it gets dark, and then pick back up in the morning and finish this. Make this quick. I'm going to spin the camera around and show you a few things, and then we're going to get started because we're going to run out of daylight, and there's a lot of tree cover in here. So once that sun starts setting, it gets dark. What we're going to be doing, I'm going to spin you around real quick. So what we're going to be doing is starting on this fence line. You see an old fence line runs right back through here, little gap here, and then this tree line. Everything from this tree line and then down this road frontage. We're going to come in vines like this here. We're going to pull this stuff down and mulch it up. And then all the debris, little small trash, saplings, things that are running through here, we're going to mulch all this down. Here's an old metal gate that somebody threw over here in the edge of the woods. The property owner said this was here when they bought the house and the property. So I'm going to pick that up and move it somewhere out of the way for them. And then all the little stuff that's back in here, I know it's kind of hard to see. You can see a horse stable back there in the background. All the little stuff, little brush like this, really small stuff. We're going to clean all that up, mulch it all up. Anything probably above 3 inches diameter is going to stay. And you can see now there's some pieces of dead tree and stuff in here. Stuff like that I'll take down, mulch it up, but all this little stuff along this front I got to get this done today. Tomorrow morning a fence company's coming in to install a fence, and it's going to run right down. Well, it's going to come out right about where that light pole is, the power pole, and it's going to run a straight line through here, and it's going to stop at the driveway right down over here, and it's going to pick up again on the other side of the driveway and go all the way down to the end of their property, and then turn back and go away from the woods, or excuse me, away from the street. So you can kind of see the house back here. There's a corner of the house here. We're going to go from that corner and come back this way to this fence line over here. And then everything from that back to where I'm standing now out here by the roadway, everything beyond that front corner of the house and going back is going to stay. The property owner didn't want to completely clear everything out, but they want the front open up enough so that when you're driving down the road, you can actually see the front of the house, because it's actually a really beautiful house. And when we get on the other end down here, you'll see there's a big berm. I'm only going to go to that berm. When I get to the berm, that's where I stop, but everything in there over to where the grass line is, all of that is going to get done. It's actually kind of a small area, so there's not going to be a lot of work over there. But when the fence company gets here tomorrow and starts installing this fence along this little frontage edge here, I won't be able to get in here and work. So I'm going to knock all this out today and go as far in as I can, and then move over and get the other frontage on the other side of the driveway done, and work my way back in some, so that when the fence company gets here tomorrow, if they actually do make it in here tomorrow, that way I can still work and I'm not in their way, and everything's cleared out, and I don't have to deal with trying to maneuver in between a new fence and this tree line, which is just about impossible and could risk damaging the new fence, either debris slinging out from the cutter or hitting it with the equipment. So I'm going to knock out as much as I can today and then finish up in the morning. And so there's not going to be a whole lot of filming today. I'm going to put this inside the cab and let you watch the cutter run. I may do a little talking, but as you can see, it is kind of tight in here because of the number of trees that are not coming down. So I have to really pay attention to what I'm doing. I don't want to hit trees and damage trees that aren't getting taken out of here. But like I said, stuff like this big pine and these bigger trees back in here, you can see, get the camera to focus. Well, it won't focus with my hand in there. But there's some bigger trees in there, and they don't want to take any of that stuff out, only the small stuff. Partly because it's still wintertime, But when spring gets here, all of this small stuff that looks like it's just a few sticks here and there, it all blooms up and fills up with leaves, and the vines, vegetation, weeds, everything else starts blooming, and it fills us all in, and it just doesn't look good. Real quick before I get started, I just wanted to show y'all, this is my neighbor, or not my neighbor, my customer's horse.
Y'all can see, but right there, whoops, right there at the end of my finger is a chunk of concrete. And then if you go right over here, another chunk of concrete. If this vegetation was thicker, like in the springtime, I might not would even see that. So I'm gonna have to get out and pick those up and move them. If I hit them, it will damage the cutter and the blades, and I don't want to have to buy a new set. Not right now. Seems like every job I do, I run across bricks. I just saw a brick by the base of a tree. Concrete, pieces of metal, and all kind of stuff. These are things you've got to pay attention to when you're working in these wooded areas. People love to throw stuff in the woods, and they don't think about what could happen later on down the road. And it's not just tearing up my equipment, but I could hit a chunk of that concrete and send it flying through the air and go through somebody's window of their house, a vehicle, or hit a person and hurt somebody. Doing jobs like this, it doesn't look like it's a lot of work. It's not hard work, but you got to really pay attention to what you're doing, because there's stuff everywhere in here that's not going to get mulched up. I really don't want to come through here and hit everything in here and tear up my equipment. Try to avoid damaging any of the trees, things like that, but maneuvering is not so easy. People are always like, why does it cost so much? It's like, well, it may not seem like a lot of work or hard work, but you got to realize that I'm in here maneuvering through a wooded area where they don't want everything removed. No chainsaw work. No excavators or anything like that. You know, so there's a limit to what you can do in an area like this. As far as clearing out the underbrush when you're not taking out everything. But because I'm not taking out everything, what I am taking out, I have to zigzag and wiggle through all of these trees in here. And it's very time consuming. These little trees love to get tangled up in all the bigger stuff, which is not a big deal, but it slows the whole process down. All of this right here is dead. Yeah. If you see, get this little tree is sitting in that little corner right there. So you got these points out on the end and they come back. That round part is the path of the blades. They actually just slightly stick out from under that. But I can get a little tree like that one in that corner and not cut it down, but clear everything on the ground around the base of that tree right there. And that's what I'm doing now. See, never touch that tree with a blade. You haven't got all that brush that was around the base of it. Kind of a weird spot here. Got this berm on one side, big trees on the other.
to it. What you can't see is right in front of me is the house, and I mean literally right in front of me. I can't go any further forward without hitting the house. Keep punching holes in here and open this up here and do the final cleanup work. Don't know if you saw the debris flying away out across that ditch, but that's why I'm facing the road, or cutting in the direction of the road away from the house. Stuff like that flies up and hits the house, and will break windows, damage the side of the house. If somebody were to walk out of the house, a piece of that debris hit them, it could seriously hurt them. Get a little
little more moving around. Had to pull some stuff out of the woods and got into the ditch so you can get to it easier and mulch it up. I got a few places like this I really need to get this knocked out today. Because tomorrow it's very likely that the fencing company will be here. Originally they were supposed to be here around 10 a.m. Don't know if that's still a good time or not, but if they're out here putting a fence in, I can't do this. So I'm going to go ahead and get all this knocked out now. I can move debris piles and mulch them up tomorrow. Notice how I went across that. I mean, I know it's dead, but it's about 4 or 5 inch diameter in the bigger section, and then it gets smaller on the other end. But then when I hit those other trees that were live back there, it grabbed them, cut them, and it started pulling them in and shredding them up. A lot of people look at this cutter and the first thing they think is because it's attached to a tractor, it's nothing but a bush hog. And I'm going to tell you, that's a wrong assumption. This is not a bush hog that you go buy at your tractor dealer, cut hay fields or overgrown weeds. This is the same cutter that is manufactured to go on the front of skid steers for doing this kind of work. Standard Brush Hog that comes from a tractor dealership. And I'm going to tell you the quality of equipment nowadays, standard equipment that you buy at the tractor dealership for homeowner use, the quality is pathetic now. They have super thin metal decks on them. When it comes to brush cutters like this, or a typical bush hog, they have a very thin wall deck. The welds are not very sturdy on them, where all the pieces are welded together. The gearbox that powers the blades are not that strong. The blades are very small. Closed deck cutters, not like this. This is an open deck. For me, what's the rear of my cutter is the front of the cutting deck if it was mounted on a skid steer. And it's open like that because it's intended to be pushed into brush and trees, and it chops things down. And that's, I know it looks backwards because I'm using the tractor, and I mean, really, I guess you could say it really is backwards. If I was on a skid steer, I'd be moving forward and cutting these trees down and mulching them up, moving forward, and back drag over them. But because I'm not using this on a skid steer, I'm using it on a tractor, I raise it up like you would on a skid steer. I'm back into the stuff I want to take down. And then I lower it and drive forward, which for me going forward is the same as back dragging in a skid steer. It's the exact same technique, it's just for me, I'm moving in opposite directions in a tractor than a skid steer. My back drag is actually me driving forward, if that helps make sense of what I'm trying to say. But what they want going. I could definitely do more for them than what I'm doing, but this is what they want. And I kind of like what they want done. They want the small stuff done, leave the larger stuff. They don't want it clear cut, and I wouldn't either if this was my house. I would want some trees out here, but get rid of all the brush and small saplings. When the springtime gets here, they're going to have a whole lot less maintenance to do. A lot less. See what I'm doing right now. You will not do this with a standard tractor dealership brush cutter. Just won't handle the torture that this thing's going through. Standard brush cutter weighs 300-400 pounds, maybe 500 on the bigger ones. This cutter weighs 1,100 pounds. It's quarter-inch thick steel deck. It's reinforced all over the place. The blades on this thing are probably 3 to 4 times the size of the blades you can see on a regular Brush Hog, which is part of why I'm able to do what I'm doing, because of the size of the blades. The blade carrier on this thing is extremely heavy. To change the blades, I have to use a floor jack. I think I'm using one that's like a 2 or 3 ton floor jack. I mean, obviously it's not that heavy, but I'm using a floor jack with an attachment that spreads the footprint of the floor jack wide enough to cover the whole blade carrier. When I take the locking nut off of it, I have to lower it off of the cutter with the floor jack, pull it out from under the cutter to change the blades. It's just a very different piece of machinery than what people think of when they think of a Brush Hog. And I can tell you the blades on this cutter are much more expensive than the ones that go on a standard Brush Hog. This cutter is, you are not going to run this on a small tractor like what the average homeowner has for doing property maintenance. And the reason I say that is because it requires a lot of power to turn that cutter blade assembly, and then to maintain that momentum so that it will keep cutting. If you put this on anything, I think 40 horsepower is the minimum that will run this cutter. I don't remember for sure. I don't even know that they advertise that in the specs for this cutter. But I talked to the company that builds it. We had a long discussion about this thing and whether or not it would work. And everything as far as measurements, for the width of it, being able to use it on this tractor. This has a 66-inch cutting depth width, but its toe total width is 72 inches. And it's the width of my tires. If I'm backing into something and the cutter will fit through, the whole tractor will fit through. If I'm driving through with the tractor will fit through, the cutter will fit through, come right on through with me. Sun starts setting, and when it does, I'm going to lose light where I can't see what I'm doing. Now watch that little tree, that little sapling over here, right here. I've got it in that groove, and I'm going to back up, and it's going to take that down, and then I can drop the cutter and take the stump all the way to the ground. Catch that one too. Steered over to the side, didn't get it like I wanted. Now I got it. And because this cutter, the width of it matches the width of the tractor, I've cut right down the side of fence lines. I can cut all the way up to the fence without touching it. And the tractor's not touching the fence. When I first went to this setup, I didn't really think about that or expect it to be able to do that. And then the first time I did it, I was actually really impressed that I could do that. So ever since then, I've been, anytime I get a job where I have to go down a fence line, I know as long as the tractor doesn't touch the fence, I can cut right down the edge of the fence. But the only thing that's going to get closer will be a weed eater. areas that I can maneuver in so I can get to other areas that I haven't covered yet. I'm trying to give myself space to work. And I've got a little bit in this corner, front corner, I've got to clean up. But I couldn't get to it because there was no way to turn around in here. A lot of what I'm doing right now needs to go. Even there's still stuff in here that's got to go. But open it up, make myself space to spin around. And I can point back towards the street. Cut that corner a little bit better. Cluster of little trees here that need to go. You know, when you're doing stuff like this, and you have to maneuver around things that aren't going to be taken down, it slows you down. That's just one of the factors of doing this. If you're in a place where you're just taking out everything you come in that's in your path, you can move faster. But that's not every job. If somebody doesn't want everything removed, you have to work around the stuff that's supposed to stay. Can make it difficult at times, but that's the business I'm in. Doing what the customer wants. Drop that right next to the fence. Yep, taking out the fence. Doing what I'm doing right this minute, it just makes it look so random, like I don't have any idea what I'm doing, but I have a reason for it. I have to make spaces I can maneuver so I can get everything that has to come out without touching the stuff that stays. Another thing that makes it difficult is right now I'm in a spot where I don't have much room to maneuver, but the ground's also not completely flat. And some of this stuff rolls in and lays down in these little grooves. It's like old ruts from logging equipment or something from a long time ago. I encounter that pretty frequently because in my area, logging has always been a pretty big industry. But as areas are abandoned for logging, they become residential or commercial. And when you get into these properties that used to be logged and they build houses, the developers are not leveling all of the ground. They level the pad for the house, but the rest of it's just, natural. It's whatever's left over from what the land used to be used for before. They sold it to residential development. And so you get on these properties like this, and you will find all these old ruts from the logging equipment. And they're covered up. A lot of times you don't see it. They're covered up by vegetation, all the dead leaves, pine straw. And so people don't realize that these ruts are in the ground. Well, they got that piece of bush off of there. don't realize all that stuff's there because they can't see it. Until you start clearing everything out, then it shows up. And if you're wondering, why does the ground look like that? You have to explain to them what caused it, what most likely caused it. No guarantees, but it could have been something other than what I say, but holes in here too from where there used to be trees and stumps have finally rotted away. On the side, I'll take that little one right there out too. That tree just laid down inside of that stump hole and I can't get it. So now I gotta pull it out of the hole with the grapple and lay it down somewhere where I can get to it. got some of this debris pulled out where I can get to it easier. Go ahead and start mulching all this stuff up. The amount of debris that is on the ground that needs to be mulched is getting smaller and smaller. A bunch of vines here that pulled down out of some trees. Sometimes it's really hard to get these vines out of these trees. You can usually cut them off at the ground, and if you can get a good grip on them, you can just pull them down and back away from a tree and pull them out of the tree. And sometimes they're just so tangled up they won't come out of the tree. But the amount of small trees I've already taken down, vines, other miscellaneous vegetation. Got a few small piles here that need to be mulched up, and as I do that, it opens up more space where I can work faster and easier. But I want to get the bulk of this knocked out so that I can open up some more areas that I haven't touched yet. Just kind of cleans up everything, makes it look a little nicer. Most of this stuff right here is dead, or mostly dead, so it shouldn't be that hard to mulch it all up. Make multiple passes and just keep breaking stuff up smaller and smaller. I know everybody has their own techniques, but I try to keep my work site as clean as possible while I'm doing stuff like this. If I can keep breaking everything up smaller and smaller, each pass gets easier. Some people like to make big piles and try to do a big pile, but honestly, it's not faster to do that. I've tried all kinds of different ways to do things. And what I'm doing right now by making small piles or spreading things out across the ground and just keep working my way across, it gets rid of everything. It chips it up faster, smaller. And on this job, the fence company is here. They're unloading trucks, and they're all, now they're in the way if I try to do stuff like I was doing yesterday afternoon. So I'm pulling plus doing what I'm doing now by pulling all this debris into the wood line and working back in the woods a little bit. It doesn't make a mess out front where everybody's going to see it when they drive by. So now I'm getting it, it's making a mulch on the ground where they want the mulch. Some of this stuff, this is the problem with putting stuff in piles, is it starts turning different directions, and when it gets sideways, you just can't get a good cut on it.
doing it, all these little small areas like this got to be done. I'm just go ahead and knock them out while I'm working on the piles. And as you do that, it reduces the amount of work that has to be done when I clean up these piles, because there's still some areas that's going to have to be done. Now that I've got the bulk of the work done, it's now just mostly cleaning everything up. Old dead logs, small stuff that I haven't run over yet. At this point, I don't want to take down any more trees. I want to take care of the little small brush and saplings that in the way. And I want to get rid of all this stuff that I've already taken down and kind of piled up and spread out. And then I can do my cleanup where I come through, do final runs over everything to mulch everything up smaller. But also get all this stuff, like right now, this stuff has to go, so I'm just going to go ahead and knock it out. But I typically try not to do this until I have everything else cleaned up, but I do need to finish this up. I can't spend all day here. So as I find stuff that needs to be taken care of, I'll just go ahead and knock it out. But normally I would only mulch up the trees that are already on the ground, and then come in and knock out this little brush stuff that's still standing. But I've gotten so much of the bulk stuff done that really reached a point where I need to get all this stuff like this out of here, because it's now basically it's just in the way. And it's hard to do cleanup passes if you have stuff in the way that really is supposed to come out. So kind of doing two things at once now, getting stuff on the ground, but also taking out all this other stuff that I was planning on doing last. Saplings I just took down, they're so small that it's not slowing me down taking them out. And they were starting to get in my way, so if I can get all this stuff out of my way, I can do better cleanup. Your debris pile small, especially when you're doing this little stuff, you don't have as much stuff flying around in the air. And you got to be careful where this debris goes when it comes out the back of that cutter. have to keep moving around so that the stuff's going away from the house. And the fence company's here, so they've got vehicles and equipment, and the people getting everything set up to start the fence installation. I have to make sure that debris is flying away from them. Last thing I want to do is hit one of those guys with the piece of debris. That one's dying. I'm going to go ahead and knock it out. You know, even if some of this stuff wasn't part of the job, if it's dead or dying, just go ahead and take it out, because what'll happen if I don't, and I'm saying this from experience, if you leave stuff that you know you really should take out, when you think you're done, the customer will come up and say, well, can you go ahead and take that out too? So just, you know, especially when it's in the way, just go ahead and do it. Be done. That way when you say you're finished and the customer comes out and looks, and they go, yep, you're done. This is exactly what I wanted. Hear a lot of people say things like, oh, well, don't do free work. And typically, I don't do anything that's free. But on jobs like this, I know what the customer's going to want. I know what they're expecting. We've already discussed it. I've looked at everything. And I know I can already pretty much predict what they're going to ask me to do that we may not have discussed at the beginning, because as I clear it out, they're going to see things that they didn't notice, and they're going to want it done. So all that's a factor in pricing the job. I know that they're going to ask for extra stuff, or maybe not necessarily extra stuff, but they're going to see things that they didn't see originally when you first looked at the job, and they're going to want that done. So rather than trying to hit the customer up for more money when they ask for something, I go ahead and factor it all in, and when I'm looking at it initially, and then I factor that into the pricing. And the advantage to doing that is the customer asks for something specific. They're already paying for it. Get it done. Don't leave them things to start asking for you to do extra. Now, if this is something outside the scope of the project, that's different. Yeah. If I was doing this and then the customer came and wanted me to do something totally unrelated, well, that would be a different situation. There would be additional fees. But when I looked in here, I already kind of had a good idea of what all needed to come out. A lot of dead stuff or really small stuff that just needs to come out. It'll look cleaner. It'll leave the property healthier. All this vegetation that's in here that doesn't need to be, go ahead and take it all out now. Everything will come in. Everything will be, the trees that remain will be healthier. Less fight for nutrition and water, or say nutrition, nutrients in the soil. Every piece of vegetation that these trees have to compete with for the nutrients in the water slows down the growth of the trees. And it can even cause them to end up not being healthy and maybe die sooner than what they should. Part of doing jobs like this is thinking about what's best for the property and the property owner. Something tangled up in my grass. There we go. Get it on the ground and mulch it up too. Come from a different direction here and do this. I'm actually having to drive over the stuff I want to mulch so I can get in a position to mulch it. I'm going to go up on ahead and come backwards and get all the little stuff laying on the ground. Go ahead and mulch that up, clean it up. Like I said earlier, everybody has their own techniques. But I've tried all different kinds of stuff. I watch what other people do and I'll try it. And what a lot of people will do is just try to power their way through. And honestly, it's not the best technique. Because the more bulk you're trying to clean up or mulch or cut down, the longer it takes. Do small bites and it's so much faster and it's easier on you and the equipment. There's some stuff in here I'm just going to have to come back with the grapple and get in there and drag it out into open spaces where I have room to work. See some more little piles that I was about to miss and get those. That tree that I just backed up to, I could take it down, but then it would make things a little bit easier. But I'm trying not to take any new stuff down right now. I want to get everything that's already on the ground mulched up, cleaned up, or at least pushed out of the way. Let's see a spot I want to come in. A couple of things I need to come in from another direction. About just pulling all this out with the grapple and moving it, but there's enough room for me to get through here, so just do it this way, or at least as much as I can go in this direction. Every time I turn the cutter off and start maneuvering with the grapple, maneuvering the stuff debris with the grapple, it's just adding to the length of time it takes to do this. You see this old oak tree laying back here, that's my cutoff line. My customer has somebody that actually wants to come and get that tree and cut it up. I think the guy has a little sawmill and he wants to do something with that tree. So I'm really not going to mess with that tree.
but I'm going to clean up around it as much as I can so that when that tree does get pulled out of here, there's not a little cluster of stuff that got left behind. Let's see. Again, I'm kind of getting to a point where I'm going to have to actually switch to using the grapple. Now I've got myself in a tight spot here that's not ideal. Let's see. I'm actually going to come out and back into here from the ditch. I know it looks a little random, but as you find openings that you can work in or create new openings, it makes things so much easier. Now I'm facing right into the sun. I can't see. Nah, that's not going to work. I'm going to have to turn around and come from the other direction. I'm trying to avoid hitting that ditch bank as much as possible. If I disrupt it too much, it'll weaken it. Some of what I'm doing now is just basically cleaning up. Got a pile over here that needs to be mulched. I saw a spot over here. I want to get in and clean this up while I can, while the fence company's not over here working. Then I'll go back and get that pile. This is just a little stuff, so knock it out right now while I can before these guys come over here and start putting the fence down. pile over to the side. This is the problem with doing these piles. This is why I don't like doing it this way, but kind of don't have a choice right now. Stuff starts moving around, gets into places where it's hard to get to it. These trees, they start turning sideways, and you just about can't do anything with them. You have to turn them lengthwise. Trying to finish up as much over here as I can because I've got to go over to another little spot in front of the house, get some stuff out of there and bring it over here and mulch. I just prefer coming in at a higher, lifting the cutter up higher and working my way down to the ground. To me, it's the most efficient way. Now you see some of this stuff turning sideways and it's not doing anything with it, so I have to move all that back into the right position. And this is, again, one of the issues with letting your pile get too big. That's why I like to do smaller bites. It may seem as if you put everything in a big pile and just work that pile to the ground, that that's the fastest way, but it's not. I try to keep my piles of debris small. Because if you let the pile get too big, and you start pushing into it, and these pieces of tree turn sideways, you're not cutting them, you're not mulching them, you're not getting rid of them. Doesn't matter how many times you go over them, when they get sideways, you're not really accomplishing much. Get back through here and break this all down too. Dead tree and stuff in here. I gotta mulch that. Like, people ask me, what do I charge per hour? I don't price jobs per hour. I give you a total price for doing the job. And if I make a miscalculation on how long it's going to take to do the job, that's my fault. also are not big on that per hour rate thing. That used to be the way people did jobs, and there's still a lot of people that do it, but that's just not the way to do business in modern times. Because what happens, people are like, obviously they have a budget. And if their budget allows a set amount of money, and you're charging them per hour, and you get in here and you're dilly-dallying around and not getting anything done, they just see you as milking the clock, trying to run the tab up. And they'll send you packing before you ever get anything finished. You have to know, you have to know how long it's going to take you to do a job, and then bid your job that way. I need to reorganize this pile so I can do a better mulch on it. Stuff everywhere in here. Part of the problem with this pile is I was dragging trees, which also gathered up vines and other debris and pulled it along with it, and everything got turned in all kind of directions. Quick passes in here, and then it's time to clean up everything with the grapple and get it situated so I can mulch faster. You know, when you bid a job like this, the way I bid them, given a set price, I know how long it's going to take me to do the job. And if I get in here and mess around and take too long doing the job, I'm hurting myself. The customer's still paying the same price. And I'm not saying set a price and then try to knock the job out faster just to get out of here faster and collect the same amount of money. You need to know how long it's going to take you to do this. Now, if I mess around, I stop taking too many breaks, you know, that's on me. I can't expect the customer to pay me to go stand around and take a break.